JR, are there any other sources of bias that emerge during the attraction phase?
Well, so, building off what Sean talked about sort of the actual words that are included. And one thing to think about is really just the number of words that are included, right? We've all had this experience where you go on to Indeed or LinkedIn, you're looking through a job description, and there's a little blurb about the company, 8 or 10 things to describe what you do in the job, and then a list of, 27 to 400, required or desirable attributes. And it then becomes really challenging as candidates to evaluate, like, do I actually possess all the qualifications or credentials that I need for this job? And we've certainly seen in the literature documented effects that that when men read a list of preferred qualifications, they're likely to hit apply even if they don't possess all of those. I think it's somewhere around, if you hit 60%, you're likely to hit apply. Whereas it's more likely for women to actually want to go through a checklist and make sure I hit all of these. And so if you're putting in unnecessary qualifications, or what we might think of as nice to haves, but not need to haves, then you're likely to miss out on candidates who aren't going to apply because they don't have particular skills or experiences, or aren't sure if they do, even though they could probably do that job very well.
Okay, great. And then, what are some strategies to help companies address that?
Yeah, so, there are at least 2 strategies. So one is, especially for anybody, here listening that is in sort of an HR business partner role, it's to push back on hiring managers. Not to be super aggressive, but to just ask, like, why do we actually need this skill? Is this actually required for the job? And if it's not, then to just take it off of the job description, right? So only include what's absolutely needed. The other piece is, and this came up, which I thought was a very interesting piece, Verizon, for example, is experimenting with actually putting a blurb at the bottom of their job descriptions that says, we encourage candidates to apply even if they don't meet 100% of the qualifications listed on this role. So you get candidates with very diverse backgrounds and interests that are still willing to apply. And I think I'll add one last piece. When really discussing what the qualifications for the role are, one of the biggest things that increase the scope of the applicants is to really think about how many years of previous experience you need to have. This is one of the biggest barriers to applications, is we often say that somebody has to have done the job that we're asking them to apply to for 3 or 4 years. And you're really limiting yourself, because there's lots of people who could acquire those skills in other related roles. And so you're limiting not just the diversity in terms of demographics, but diversity in the skill set.